Was this Bashar's ship or something else?
Something else. We will not go into details at this time.
Okay. And what this person is saying, when they were younger, they had vivid dreams of their family house on fire and witnessing a UFO. These dreams are still very vivid, and in their research, they sense that they might be significant encounters. They're saying that they know they've been in contact with ETs, and they feel close to remembering, perhaps even Bashar himself, which is one reason they feel such a strong pull to join this transmission. Any insights you might provide that would be helpful in this situation?
This is indicative of communication with hybrid beings in the dream state, in the altered reality state. The house on fire represents the idea of what you're going through now in terms of breaking things down, burning things up, going from an old cycle to a new cycle, allowing the old systems to fall away, to burn away, and new systems to be put in place for your world and your reality to be refreshed and renewed. So the idea is that you are going through this transition. Sometimes it will be represented in a negative way, such as the burning of a house, but nevertheless, it is representative of a clearing, of a letting go of an old way, burning the old ideas out and allowing new ones to come in. So the idea is of a clearing and a preparation and a laying a foundation for a new structure, a new reality to take place in which contact can occur more easily. That is the communication that was given symbolically.
Nice. This person is saying in LA, her son and she spotted two silent triangular shapes with distinct circles in each corner, flying in the night sky from their hot tub. A friend's photo of a similar craft later led me to Bashar, raising questions about the origins of what they saw.
Yes, well, hybrid ships. Again, there's a lot of traffic around your planet. When you expand your consciousness, especially in a relaxed state, such as you achieved in your hot tub, a meditative state, your senses can then become more keenly aware of things that are going on around you that might have been invisible to you before until you allowed your vibration to raise by being in a more meditative state, which then gave you the ability to see some of the traffic that is moving around your planet all the time, especially the hybrid ships, since they are very close to the vibration of open contact, since it is the hybrid children that will be coming to live among you.
Okay, and here's another one. This person says, I had a fascinating flying vehicle encounter in October of 2023 in New York City. It happened around 7 a.m. in Manhattan near the 14th Street Union Square area. I was out grabbing a coffee before work when, upon crossing a street, I noticed out of the sheer corner of my eye an object flying rather unusually low in the open between the buildings. It appeared large, silent, at a distance. I noticed that it happened to be heading in the direction of my workplace right before it disappeared from view behind the buildings. A block away from my workplace, I decided to stop and see if I could get a good look at what it was. Well, lo and behold, I did, only this time it then hovered and stopped in the open space as if noticing me noticing it and stopping by to say hello. If what I perceived was in fact extraterrestrial, may you share with me who that pilot was that was piloting that ship and where they from and anything more you can tell me about that?
It is a Yael craft. They did notice that you were noticing them. Having the coffee is symbolic of waking up, and they were basically recognizing that you were waking up enough to be able to perceive their ship, which was out of phase with your reality, and yet you saw it anyway. And so they noticed that. Their message, in a sense, was good morning. You are waking up.
This person is saying, I'm a science fiction fantasy author, and I'm always wondered if the worlds and characters that run around in my head are as real as I am, or are they only real as this reality? I have a hard time defining the world as an illusion because to me, illusions are fake and fake is meaningless or a lie. Would it be safe to view the world as more malleable and less fixed than we humans currently view our experience of it?
Yes. And again, you can have a different definition of the word illusion. It is not meant in the term to be fake. The idea is perhaps more auspiciously used as a projection of consciousness rather than illusion, if illusion doesn't work for you as a term. So a projection of consciousness can still create a virtual reality for you, and the meaning in it is what you put into it. The experience of it is real, and it gives you lessons, it gives you knowledge, it allows you to expand, it allows you to learn, it allows you to grow. So in that sense, the so-called quote-unquote illusion is useful as a tool, if you think of it that way, but perhaps it would be easier for you to use it in the term projection rather than illusion. The idea is that the imaginings are real in their own right to some degree in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean they have to be as concrete as you find your reality to be, but many of them may be, or they may be very close representations of a quote-unquote real solid physical reality. They may be slightly different than you imagine them to be, but they could be close. Nevertheless, everything is real in some context, even if it's only real as a story. It's still real in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not literally played out physically in some parallel version of reality.
So maybe one of the ways to relate to this is the idea that since it's a projection of consciousness, it's more malleable
Yes,
and it has more plasticity than we were originally taught.
yes,
And similarly, whatever you experience is relevant to what you need to experience. So it in a way it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote real or not. Like,
yes,
for example, they found that if a person observes another person being hurt in a way that is designed to make the person think it's happening to them, their subconscious cannot distinguish between what is really happening to them and what they are just simply observing.
yes, but you are choosing a very complex psychological example that is beyond what this person was intending. The idea is to look at it more from the science fiction point of view. For example, in your Star Trek, you have the character known as Mr. Spock. As we have discovered, we have never found yet the idea that beings that look exactly like them, what you call the Vulcans, physically exist, but the representation of Mr. Spock is that he is a hybrid. Hybrids exist. The idea of what you call the non-interference directive, the prime directive in Star Trek, where certain civilizations that have not evolved to a certain point are allowed to evolve to that point before they are contacted, that is an actual thing that exists in many civilizations, including ours. So the idea is that there can be a mix of things that do have concrete reality to them, physically speaking. There can be some things that are real in the sense that they are symbolic representations of other concrete realities, though the representation itself may not be literal. And there are some things that are simply literal as stories. And that doesn't make them any less real because they are real stories. But they're not necessarily concretely, literally real in the physical sense that you understand physical reality experiences to be. But anything you can imagine in some context is real, because you cannot imagine non-existence. You just have to be able to discern the context of the thing that you're talking about to know the difference between something that exists as an actual concrete physical reality and something that exists as an idea that's still real as an idea, but is not necessarily concretely literal. Although, I have to add the caveat that in spirit, anything you imagine can be created, literally exactly experienced as if it is physically concretely real. So you can, in spirit, conjure up Mr. Spock, literally. And a being can take that form for you and represent it for you, and you can interact with it as if you are interacting with a literal being that is known as Mr. Spock. But that's taking place in an extremely malleable reality such as spirit, where anything you can imagine can be manifest out of spirit material, so to speak. But it is not literally physically concrete in the way that you're experiencing physical reality now. But it will be as real as you imagine it to be, and will be the product of another kind of level of consciousness interacting with you. And in that context, just as real as anything, because the interaction and the experience will be real.
It's fascinating.
Yes.
And this person is saying they would like clarification on these two seemingly opposing ideas. One is that everything is a reflection of ourselves. And two, I hear you say sometimes to not take people's reflections personally because it has nothing to do with you. And it's just a part of their own journey. Can you clarify that?
Yes. Remember that you are experiencing your version of other beings. It doesn't mean they're not real. It's just that you're creating your simulational representational image of them and interacting with that. So what you are interacting with is your creation, but that doesn't mean you've created the actual being, the actual consciousness. The consciousness is real, and you're interacting with a real consciousness, but you're interacting through the filter that you're capable of manifesting that is the best representation of them that you manifest out of your own consciousness, out of your own energy, as an interface, so to speak. The idea of the second part of the question, read that again.
The idea that if someone the second person says something like your socks are orange and you know your socks are not orange.
Yes.
So you don't take it personally because you know it has nothing to do with you and it's part of their journey.
All right. Well, this is about discernment, because the idea is that you can always listen to what someone has to say and decide for yourself whether or not their advice is something that you do need to apply. And that's why they have been attracted into your reality, because there is a lesson there for you. There is information there that would benefit you if you applied it in your life. But you also get to discern whether or not that's true. And therefore you can, if you are honest within your own self-investigation, know the difference between whether or not somebody that's been attracted into your life and says certain things to you is actually having information that would benefit you, or whether you simply have attracted them to be of benefit to them in some way, shape, or form, by understanding that what they're saying to you is not your issue, but theirs, that you could perhaps help them with by giving them another alternative way to look at what it is they are going through. So they're still in your life because you attracted them, but you may have attracted them to be of assistance to them in changing the way they're looking at things, rather than them having information that would benefit you. But you have to give yourself the opportunity to decide which it is. You have to have honest self-recognition and self-awareness and self-discernment as to whether the information is for you or for them, or maybe both.
Okay, and this question is about assisting those in despair. How would you help someone who says that he or she wants to die? This person says they work every day with people who have lost their illusion in life.
All right. We're going to keep this very simple. Tell them to lie down on the floor or on the bed, close their eyes, and say they are ready to leave, and have them count to 10. If they can still open their eyes when they get to 10, they're not ready to leave. They are here by choice. And if they truly were done with their lives, they would have left. They would have died in that moment. That's all it takes. You don't have to have any other kind of assistance if you're really at your timing to leave. So if they can still count to 10 and open their eyes, that's their first clue that they're not ready to leave. They have not finished what they came to do. So that's an easy way to tell whether you're ready to go, whether you're really ready to die, whether you're really ready to wake back up in spirit, or whether you feel you still have something to do in physical reality that can then give them the sense of looking for what that is, finding their passions, finding their interests, not being so hard on themselves, not judging themselves so harshly, so negatively. Stop treating themselves so badly and start waking up to the fact that they are aspects of all that is, that they are beautiful, that they are creative, that they are loving and loved, they are supported unconditionally, and what they say goes. So if they want to buy into all sorts of negativity, the unconditional nature of existence will support them in that negativity because it is unconditional. And you can teach them that since it is unconditional, so unconditional that it is even willing to support them in their negativity, there is no reason it wouldn't support them in their positivity as well. And they can decide to choose more positive ways of looking at things, more positive definitions, and those will be supported just as strongly by existence as the negative ideas they held to be true were supported as well. It's up to them, but first and foremost, you can show them that they're not ready to leave, because if they really were at the end of their lives, it would be as simple as lying down, saying you're ready to go, counting to 10, and you'd be gone.
Fascinating. Can you comment on, I know people sometimes are concerned about how they're going to die. And then there seem to be some people who are lucky enough to just pass away in their sleep.
Why is that lucky?
Yeah. Okay. So can you explain
Remember,
that?
it's all about choice, and it's all about a learning experience, and it's all about what you believe to be true. So regardless of how the death occurs, it's going to be the result of something you believe to be true. It doesn't mean that you necessarily would have preferred it that way, but remember that once you have died and the soul is looking back on the experience, it will have the realization of why it occurred that way because of the belief systems of the physical part of its being, and therefore it will learn a lesson from that, that it didn't necessarily have to choose that, or that it did choose it for very specific reasons that may have more to do with others around it than itself. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
So does that also mean that people who are like reaching the age where death could potentially happen, and they decide they want to program themselves that whenever their timing is, that it would be in a certain way that wouldn't be painful or something like
Possibly,
that?
possibly. Again, it depends on how deep they dig into their belief system, how they're willing to learn the lessons they chose to learn, the challenges they chose to face in this life in a different way. They have the option of doing it that way, but that implies that they've learned something about their ability to create their reality. And that may be the whole point.
Okay. And so people who have a lot of fear of death, there seems to be two parts to it. One of them is the idea that actually, this is coming from the near-death experiences. People have this wide variety of experiences, but it's all really based on their belief systems, right?
At first, yes. But again, initially, when the belief system manifests when they are non-physical, they still get the opportunity to decide whether or not they prefer to continue to experience that or change it. And again, in non-physical reality, if they decide to change it, the change will happen instantly with no time lag. So they will learn immediately that it was the product of their belief system as to what they experienced upon the moment of their death.
And yet a lot of people, when they come back from a near-death experience, they don't seem to understand that. They're just convinced that the way that they experienced it is the way that it happens or something, or that it validates what they believe about reality.
Again, this may be true for some people, but many more people are beginning to learn the malleability of the experience in the near-death experience, what is common and what is not, and what is personal and what is general. They are beginning to learn. Again, like anything, you need to have a large amount of data to sift through to understand where the personal aspects are and where the collective aspects are that are common to most.
Well, it's very helpful that we're starting to understand more about death and get over our fear of it.
Yes, it is very helpful because, as we said, a lot of beings you may encounter in open contact will be of a vibration that would be similar to the idea of spirit. And if your physical mind can't come to terms with that vibration and lose the fear, then your body may react to these beings as if you are dying, being exposed to their energy. And that is what causes the fear and survival mode reaction within many people.
So that's very helpful.
Yes.
Um, Now, this person is talking about having an obsession with money. And they say that sometimes they get obsessed with the idea of money and focusing on getting more. This preoccupation creates confusion about their true passion,
All
which
right,
is also
stop. We are going to once again remind you that we have addressed this by expanding your definitions of abundance and not focusing only on money as the only symbolic representation you have of exchange and abundance and support on your planet. We will simply refer this person to what we have already said about it, and we will move on from here.
okay. And this person is talking about they were following their excitement at the end of last year and went on a sabbatical trip to Thailand and Bali for 3 months. They tried to cut out contact with the old reality as much as they could by following their excitement, which led them to an amazing journey of self discovery and multidimensional exploration. Now they're back in their hometown and they're faced with the elements of the old reality that still trigger them.
Then they're still reacting the same way, and they have not brought the Bali experience home with them. They have not stayed in that vibration for their own reasons. They need to examine their belief systems to find out what difference they are making between the Bali experience and their hometown that allows them to still react the same old way that they used to, instead of being transformed by the Bali experience and the vibration they were in there and bringing that vibration back to the circumstances in their hometown. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your reality. So why react the same old way just because things in the hometown look the same? Remember, the measure of change is not whether the outside has changed, it's how you react and respond differently even if the outside still looks the same. That is all we will say about that at this point.
Okay. And this person is asking, how can I fully let go? How can I be my full self, truly embracing my perfect puzzle piece and frequency?
Understand clearly and act upon precisely the formula. Period.
So helpful, actually. This person is saying they've been on this spiritual journey for some time, but they feel they've stagnated. They don't feel or receive messages from their higher self or anything.
Nonsense. Look to the synchronicity in your life. Don't define having to receive those messages in a certain way. Don't insist on a certain method of delivery. Synchronicity is everything in physical reality. Start looking at the interconnections and associations that exist in everything in your physical reality, and you will start to see synchronicity more clearly as messages from your higher mind. And remember that the primary message from your higher mind are those things that you are passionate about, because that's how your body interprets the messages from the higher mind, is as the sensation of excitement, passion, creativity, and love. So look to the synchronicities. They abound. They're all around you. Everything is an orchestration. Everything is a synchronicity. Just change your definition of what's going on around you and you'll see it more clearly.
Okay, thank you. This person is saying that a good friend of theirs died a few years ago, and sometimes when they're alone and in a quiet space, they like to talk to that person as if they're actually right there in front of them. Does he hear what I'm saying, and how can I know? Because I miss him so terribly.
Just know that he does. because it's easier for spirits to hear you than it is for you to hear the spirits. Remember, the idea is that they are now unbounded from time and space, and therefore, talking to them, they get it, and they can be there with you. So you just have to open up to the understanding that they are, and you will begin to perceive them. But again, you have to raise your vibration to be more sensitive to the fact that they exist. You have to be open to receiving their communications without a definition that you have lost something. Otherwise, you will only perceive the connections they may be attempting to make to you as grief, and the grief will block them from being able to deliver those informational messages to you and block you from receiving it. So you have to let go of the idea that you've lost someone. You have to let go of the grief eventually so that you can be more open to receiving the messages that they have for you, and simply know that they will hear you when you talk to them in earnest from your heart. This will be the culmination of the questions for today.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And
We will now remind all of you about the upcoming transmission for the Interstellar Alliance Social Experiment, Step 1, that will be delivered next time. For we now have given you the ability to prepare for things that will be suggested, that are actions you can take, that are behaviors you can change individually and in society. Again, we remind you, you do not have to do the things we will suggest in this social experiment, but that if you do, your vibration will become more compatibly aligned with the vibration of the Interstellar Alliance and open contact. So it is up to you to decide what you prefer. So, next time we will deliver step 1 of the Interstellar Alliance social experiment in this countdown to contact year 1. Be prepared if you are going to participate. Be open, be willing, be creative, imaginative, be loving to yourselves and all. Be connected, be aware, be awake. Our unconditional love to you all, and good day.
Appreciate you. I would like some clarification on balancing points 3 and 4 of the formula. Point 3, acting on my excitement without any insistence, assumption, or expectation of what the outcome should be, and staying in a positive state of mind. So my clarification is, I get how I should let go and allow things to unfold and trust that the abundance that I'm seeking in this specific example can come from many different ways. But I'm not sure how I can stay in a positive state of mind without some belief that it is going to work, that I am going to have my needs met. So how can I both have no insistence that it's going to work and yet stay in a positive state of mind? Can you expand on that for me?
Yes. First of all, understand that by letting go of insistence, that is a way for opening up to receive what you truly need. Because insisting on things may actually close the door to receiving what you truly need. Because your insistence may be saying, I know what is best, I know what I need, and maybe you don't. So the idea is to drop the insistence, because insistence limits your ability to actually receive what you need. I will remind you of the 7 basic needs of life. You need air, you need water, you need sleep, you need food, you need some form of shelter or positive constructive environment that allows you to thrive. You need the idea of connection or relationship with something, whether it's a person or not. And you need the idea of self-creative expression, the idea of acting on your passion. If you say you have needs that go beyond those, then they are not needs, they are insistences on something that may not be what you need, but may only be representative of what your ego system wants. And it may not be aligned with what you truly need. If you receive the 7 things we just outlined that are the true needs in life, your life will be fulfilled. So you have to pay attention to whether the idea of what you say are your needs are actually really wants, or are they truly aligned with the 7 needs we just outlined? The idea of staying in a positive state is, again, your ability to experience whatever happens in a more constructive, beneficial way. Why would you want to stay in a negative state and experience things in a negative way, in a destructive way, in a way that doesn't serve you positively? Staying in a positive state is allowing you to interpret any experience and glean from that experience and extract from that experience something that will move you forward in a positive direction, that will allow you to feel more connected, more self-empowered. So the question is, why wouldn't you choose to stay in a positive state no matter what happens, knowing that if you do stay in that positive state, you'll be able to get a benefit out of whatever's going on? Even if you recognize that what manifested is something you don't prefer, that's just an objective observation. Staying in a positive state will allow you to understand how that manifestation can still serve you in a positive way by being there, instead of succumbing to the negative state that will only make it impossible for you to realize how that manifestation could serve you in a positive way. So it's up to you to decide what you actually prefer to experience, and know that you're making a choice to be in a state of being that will allow you to experience them in the way that you prefer, as opposed to experiencing things in the way that you don't prefer. So it's just simply a choice you make based on how you would like to experience things, and by understanding what your true basic needs are, and not calling things that are egotistical wants things that you actually think you need, when in fact you may not.
Hey, Bashar.
Good day.
Hi. I am so excited by this. I really thank you for this.
It is our passion and our pleasure. What would you like to discuss?
Well, my personal growth is really important to me. I've known that since I was a little kid. And it led me to you and the excuse me, I'm senior moment. Um,
The formula?
The formula, thank you, thank you. Yes, and I've taken to the formula, and I have a really good understanding of it. And it's also I have the law of attraction information as well.
Yes, well, the law of attraction, in a sense, is built into the formula as well. Because, again, what you put out is what you get back.
Yes, I have discovered that my life has taken a terrific change. I'm basically happy all the time thanks to this.
Yes,
Um,
we are basically happy all the time as well.
I like to hear that. Yes. Um, I guess my question I have is there anything there that I may not be aware of that maybe I don't know. I don't actually know, but I'm just
If you
wondering if
say
I'm.
that you are happy all the time, why would you assume that there is something else you need to know? And why wouldn't you understand the formula enough to know that if there is something there, the reflective mirror component of it will bring it to your attention in the appropriate time?
I actually agree with you on that. I guess sometimes I get so excited that I forget where my passion takes me. But I do follow my passion. Like you, I'm an artist, so I do know what it's like to allow my creativity and my imagination
All
sometimes
right.
get the better of me. But yes,
All right. Well, as long as you always course correct, as long as you're always aware to check yourself, you'll be fine.
thank you, thank you. Uh, The only other question I have at this time, it just dawned on me that like the work you're doing to with First Contact, I was really happy to hear what the announcement you made about the next coming year. My question is like what do we on this planet at this time, what do we offer in this exchange?
Many different things, many different perspectives, ways of experiencing life, ways of expressing your creativity that are different from ours. It enhances and builds and adds to our understanding of all the different ways that all that is has of expressing itself. Plus, again, the idea is that in the suggestions that we will deliver in the upcoming transmissions, we will see how you use your creativity to perform these acts for all those who are willing to follow these suggestions, take the actions, and increase their vibrational frequency to be that more aligned with the interstellar alliance. You will come at it from a unique point of view.
I like that. Uh, I listen to a lot of information for, like near-death experiences. I like to give an understanding of what's waiting for us on the other side when we go back to where we came from.
Yes, but remember that you are already there.
Yes, I am quite aware of that.
All right.
I'm working on my relationship with my inner being and source, building on that relationship. But I do understand that I come from the perspective of an illusion
Yes.
and going back to something real. Uh, and I actually do enjoy that fact. I'm looking
Yes.
forward to that.
Yes, it doesn't diminish the effect of the illusion because the illusion has its purpose, allowing you experiences that cannot be had purely in spirit, and thus it expands you and allows you to grow. So just by understanding it as an illusion does not in any way, shape, or form discount the experience as important.
I've discovered how important our experience here is to where source is.
Yes.
Yes. I also came to the conclusion that we are basically energy that
Yes.
has consciousness.
Well, yes, consciousness is energy. Energy is consciousness. Existence
Right.
is conscious.
Well, I gotta say, Bashar, I really do appreciate this. I don't actually have any other questions, but I'm grateful to having this time with you.
As are we. We thank you for the co-creation of the interaction, and again, bid you an exciting path and journey. Aveo.
Leo.
Reality. Does that mean each individual one of those billion frames per second, there is an infinite amount of those individual frames, such as for me, let's say that this here is a frame, but at the same time there is an infinite number of frames of my own version of the Earth reality. Obviously, like there will be 8 billion people experiencing their individual frame, but then there's also the frames of perception from like the trees and the plants, the fishes, the animals, etc. Or is it more so that from my perspective there is the infinite frames, but then from other people they don't exist within my frame until I observe them? Thank you for answering my question. Good day.
Yes, to a degree, but understand that even though there are infinite frames in all the directions that you mentioned, not all of them are relevant for your particular timeline experience. So while they all exist, you only experience a finite number of them in any given lifetime or timeline. And you only experience those who have frames that, as you say, you are willing to observe, willing to interact with. You create similar frames that allow you the experience of interaction, even though you're not actually in the same frame. All right, good day, good day.
Good day, my friend. Oh, so exciting to see you again. All my love. Um, Bashar, um, I've heard it described by the channel. What was it? Niagara Falls through a garden hose. Acting on the formula, that last part, remaining in a positive state no matter what happens. I've noticed there's some physical uh, feelings I get. What is this? Certain things are dissolving, and physically speaking, I'm feeling like almost like a cobweb on my face, some certain things. Is this natural?
It can be one of the effects of allowing your neurological net to realign itself and be upgraded to receive higher frequency energies. You will get used to it.
Okay. Very good, very good. And Gee, I think that's pretty much about it. With that, thank you very much. All my love, and all my love to everyone else.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hello, Bashar. This is Erin from Toronto. I had a question about genetics. My question is, I am Caucasian and my husband is Persian, and we just assumed that the dominant genes would be his since he has black hair and brown eyes and dark skin, that our child would look like him. But my son looks exactly like my dad, like to the degree to which my dad showed me a photo of himself as a baby and it was identical to my son. And I wondered, is this a choice made by the child themselves? Does this have to do with their DNA or their life choices? Is it that they're trying to align more to my familial lineage, or is it just genes? Does it just happen the way it happens? I feel like there's more significance here. I would just like to have a bit better understanding. Thank you so much.
It's all of the above. The spirit will choose the genetic makeup that will serve the life path best. So therefore, it can be an expression of what will work for the spirit in this particular lifetime, and therefore they choose the genes that will be arranged in such a way as to allow them the expression and the idea of the, one moment, strongest connection to the future hybrids possible.
Good day. Hi, Bashar. I'm very grateful for this interaction.
All right, please speak up.
Yes. I've always felt very disconnected and overwhelmed, in this world since I was very young. And I started for a very young age, questioning, look for the sense of existence. Like many others here, I have a long story of pain, suffering, search, learning, and healing to try to connect with God or enlightenment, if we can say this word. So 13 years ago, I found you. And I've been following the formula, practice it along with other remission sleeps. And a couple of years ago, I finally found some clarity, peace, healing, purpose, my mission, when I then decided to go back to South America and work in communities, and I took then one of my sons. And 6 months later, he passed away unexpectedly. So I felt lost, disconnected, like I went backwards again. So my question is related to, at the moment, I don't need anything. I don't want to manifest anything. My question is actually, how can we end the suffering of our minds and be one with God?
By understanding that you have lost nothing but gained everything. These things happen by agreements. The timing of your son's passing is something that can actually aid and assist you in stretching your mind towards spirit by reaching out to him, by connecting to him more strongly, and not feeling it as a loss, but feeling it as an expansion. For you exist in spirit alongside him as well, eternally. So if you begin to rearrange your point of view and understand that you are there with him and that he is always with you, then you can expand your understanding, not feel it as a sense of loss, and move forward with purpose.
So your opinion, is grief a form of attachment?
It is to some degree an attachment to the idea that you have lost something, that something is missing from your life. Now, we understand that a brief amount of it can be healthy for you to let go of that idea, but the longer you hold on to grief, it actually prevents the spirit from reaching out and communicating with you. Because the idea is that when they attempt to do so, it will remind you of them, and as long as you remember them through the idea of loss, you will always feel the connection as more grief, rather than opening up to the idea that it is a communication coming from them.
And is anything we could say to help me in this process?
I have just given you the understanding. Listen once again. You have to understand that anytime you feel grief, it may be representative of an attempt by your son's spirit to communicate to you. But as long as you look at the idea of his death as a loss, you will experience the communication as grief, instead of opening up to the idea that he is attempting to help you by stretching your consciousness and retraining your consciousness to focus on him in spirit.
Okay, thank you. If I haven't made another question, in relation to the Ascended Masters, how can they help us as an individual or collectively? Should we follow their guidance, or can we connect it spiritually with them?
All ascended masters can be connected to. Anytime that you feel a connection to them, think of them, you are connecting to their frequency. But all ascended masters are basically telling you the same message. It is not about following them. It is about understanding that you have the same potential as they do, to be like them, to know that you are like them, to realize your full potential. So the idea is that they act as reflections of what you can achieve. They act as reminders of the power that you have within you. So if you take it to heart and understand that they're simply showing you what you can also be, then again, you can move forward with purpose and passion.
If I may, another question. So is it true that people are really channeling them as well?
Sometimes you have to have the discernment to tell the difference when it may be a true channeling or when it may simply be an aspect of the channel's own consciousness, which sometimes can still be positive. But you have to have the discernment to know the difference between when it is connecting to a different being, an ascended master, a spirit guide, an extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional source, or when it may simply be something that represents the channel's aspect of a different aspect of their own personality. The idea fundamentally is, if the information is positive, constructive, self-empowering, then it doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as it benefits you in your life and allows you the opportunity to exercise your free will to be who you are. If it is in any way, shape, or form controlling or restrictive in that sense, then it is obviously, more often than not, an aspect of the channel's personality that they have yet to integrate within themselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bashar.
You are so welcome. Aveo.
Aveo, thank you.
And hold yourself in the same value that the creation holds you in, only really then will the tools be effective in the strongest way possible. This only makes sense, for the tools will only be as strong and as powerful as the energy you give them, because the energy comes from you, through you. Therefore, you are the ones that determine the efficacy of the tools. They do not really have the ability to work of and by themselves, because they draw their energy from you. They draw their realization capability from you. So let us briefly lay down a little bit as an outline of these ideas so that we will understand when questions come what we are all talking about, and we'll have something to refer back to as a base point, a baseline. First and foremost, as we have said, self-valuation. From there comes the understanding of what it means to be a personality structure. Personality structure, very briefly, in recap for some of you, in newness for others, is based on three things, three principles. Your personality is an artificial construct. Doesn't mean it isn't natural, but it is a type of mask that is built or created or fabricated from three ideas: belief systems, emotions, and behavior. You can understand the analogy of belief systems as being like blueprints of a building. Emotions are the builders, the activation principles and energies that get the building built. The behavior is the building materials, the thoughts and actions that you do. So you can instantly understand that the nature of the blueprint, the clarity of the design, will determine the ultimate product, and the nature of the builders will determine the quality of the product, and the nature of the building materials will determine the quality of the final building. When those three things are in alignment, you can understand that your reality will reflect the idea of a strong structure, a strong reality that is stable in that way. But if either your belief, blueprint, your emotional builder, or your behavior, building materials, are somehow lacking or out of balance in the idea of self-worth and self-valuation, and are not aligned with the other sides of the three-sided prism, then of course it would be obvious that your building would be, as you would say in your language, a little bit wonky. So, this whole idea is to help clarify what those three components really are all about, and how to maintain them and bring them back into balance. Now, also, it takes an understanding that physical reality is really just a mirror, and it can only reflect what you put out. There are really only 4 laws in creation that allow you to experience everything that you experience. Law number 1 is that you exist. Can't do much about that. Now, when we talk, first of all, about laws, we're not talking about the type of laws that you have on your planet that are, in that sense, arbitrary rules and regulations that can be broken, or changed, or rewritten, or ignored. But the idea is even beyond what many of you call laws of physics, because even some of these are only germane to your particular universal reality, and in other dimensions, many of the so-called laws that you have labeled do not really apply. We are talking about real laws, because real laws cannot be broken. Cannot be broken. It is impossible. And it is these 4 laws that give structure to all of creation. So, as we have said, law number 1, you exist. And what that actually means, when taken out to its ultimate logical understanding, is that if you exist now, you always will, and you always have. Therefore, you may change form, but you will always exist in some way, shape, or form. Because isness is the only quality that existence has. It does not know how to become non-existence. Non-existence is already full of all the things that will never exist, and there is no room in non-existence for that which does exist. That which exists only has one quality, to be. And thus, that is the only thing it will always be. So if you do exist, you always will. So, relax. Law number 2. The one is the all, and the all are the one. And this simply means that all of the pieces together form the one. And the one is the one, but knows itself simultaneously as all the pieces. What this means is that creation is not separate from the Creator, but is made of the Creator, and that there is no outside to it. Everything that is, every discrete person, place, thing, every discrete concept, every discrete part is a part of one same whole, and also, holographically, every single part is the whole, expressing itself as a part of the whole. So the second law, the one is all, the all are one. Law 3, what you put out is what you get back. Very simple. The energy you give off, based on your beliefs, your emotions, your behaviors, the vibrational frequency you give off is what determines the kind of reality experience you have. Because physical reality doesn't exist except as a reflection of what you strongly believe is true for you. That is all physical reality is. It is literally like a mirror. If you are looking in a mirror and you see your face with a frown on it, you know that you don't go over to the mirror and try to force the reflection to smile. You know that if you want to see the reflection smile, you must smile first. There is no way to change the reflection without you smiling first. But you can also conversely understand that when you decide to smile, the reflection has no choice but to return the smile, because it doesn't have a mind of its own. So the idea to understand is that physical reality very much is really like a mirror. It will not change until you do first. But if you do, it has no choice but to follow suit, because it is only a reflection of what you have put out. Law number 4. Change is the only constant, and everything changes except the first 3 laws. That is it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Every experience you have ever had, are having now, or will ever have, is based on a combination of these 4 laws to varying degrees. That's it. Now, the idea to understand, again, is that when you allow yourself to make choices, then your choices are based on your motivation. And your motivation is based on your definitions. This is the other way to explain the three-part process. Your behavior, your choices, are based on your motivations, your emotions, which stem from your definitions, which are your beliefs. So anytime you are making a choice, it is always because you have been motivated to make that choice. Motivation only has two parts to it. This is all there is to motivation. You will always, in every single case, you will always choose what you perceive to be the choice that is closest to pleasure and furthest from pain. That's it. That is your entire motivational force. But notice I said you will choose what you perceive to be closest to pleasure and furthest from pain. And that's where definitions come in. Because only as you define what you believe to be pleasurable or painful will you then be motivated to make choices in accordance to that belief. So many times you may choose things that on one level you could say seem to be detrimental or destructive to you, but if you keep choosing it, that simply means that you must have a definition in your belief system somewhere that says that regardless of how painful it is to keep choosing that, you are somehow defining it as being less painful than making any other choice. That's why it is so powerful to get in touch with what your belief systems are, because when you find out why you may be defining something as pleasurable or painful, and you change the definition, you will instantly change your motivation, and you will instantly change the choices that you make, because you're all motivated people. None of you lack motivation. None of you lack trust. It's just a matter of where you are placing your trust, and what definition you are motivated to act upon. That's all there is to it. This is how you simplify the things in your life, by understanding them from the base on up. From definition through motivation through choice. From belief through emotion through behavior. That's all there is to it, really. The final thing that we will be including in this toolkit is the idea that we have begun to talk about now recently that is above and beyond the idea of belief, and that is simple knowingness, which comes from the idea of surrender, letting go. Now, again, we understand that in many of the definitions many of you have on your planet regarding this word surrender, many of you will label this as a loss of some sort or a lack of control of some sort, and this is not the case. Surrender, if we may provide our definition, is the letting go of the concept of who you think you're supposed to be and actually being who you are. Because who you are is unlimited possibilities. And when you allow yourself to surrender to the idea and the experience that you were created in the image of the infinite, which means you are infinite possibilities too, then the physical reality, which is only a mirror, can then reflect those unlimited possibilities back to you in the synchronicities as they naturally unfold in your physical day-to-day life. So surrender is actually acceptance of your total self, not, in that sense, the forsaking of your total self, as many of you have been led to believe through the definitions that your world has provided you with that only serve to limit you. And this is what we want to share with you, and what we suggest you learn to give up, are those limitations. So that is really what we are going to be discussing in all of these interactions. Are variations of those principles. It will usually all come down to that idea. And of course, it will usually also come down to one other principle that is all wrapped up in this, and that has to do with being your natural true self, which in many cases is simply another way of saying follow your joy, follow your excitement to the best of your ability, because the sensation that you call joy, the sensation that you call excitement, the sensation that you call unconditional love is the frequency of energy that represents your natural, true, core, original self. So when you are acting on circumstances and opportunities that bring with them the highest level of this joy, the highest level of excitement, you are saying you have the faith to take the steps to act upon your true self, and in so doing, your physical reality, the mirror, will support you because it has no choice but to do so. These are the principles that comprise the toolkit of manifestation and change, and that's really all there is to it. You will see as we discuss the ideas that you wish to share this day of your time that Almost everything you have to share will come down in one way, shape, or form to these ideas, if it has to do with the idea of your own personal growth and your own personal life and the expression of who and what you are. So, with all of that in mind, we once again thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to receive the gift of this sharing from you. And in return for this gift, I ask you now, in what way may I and my world be of service to you? You may begin with sharing in any manner you so desire.